Hello, guys, and welcome to Culture Talks episode 12. We are absolutely delighted to be joined with our friend Ruth Young. Ruth Young is from Ruthless Media, and I've got that right.
Yep.
And Ruth is fantastic. She works with organizations to help them improve their social media and make sure that they're connecting with the right audiences. At this point, I usually hand it over, and Ruth, you'll probably describe it a lot better than I have. But let's tell the audience, who are you and what do you do?
So I'm Ruth Young. My career wasn't always in social media. I actually started working in community, youth, family work, and did that for about 15 years. But sort of intertwined within all of that was a lot of like training provision, employability skills, recruiting participants for programs, engaging with stakeholders, a whole range of things. And it also all kind of hinged on using social media to make a lot of that happen. So whenever I was going out on my own in August last year, I kind of thought of all those things that I really love doing. And I did camps for young people, learning how to do, digital skills and stuff, or produce radio content and all sorts of things. And I loved all of that training and all of that working with people and helping them to really see more of who they were and the skills that they had, and give them that confidence to use those things. So when I set out my own, I thought I really want to focus on that training, helping people to be confident with it, and then also just really enjoying the social media side of things and getting that message out there. So Ruthless Media focuses on working with sort of solopreneurs, small medium enterprises, to help them with their own social media in lots and lots of different ways, because there's no one size fits all when it comes to social media as well.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Ruth, I suppose one of the things we really wanted to explore in this was just to sort of start off, I suppose, with an open question. You've obviously worked with a lot of different organizations and different sizes. How do you feel that organizations can express their culture through their brand image, through their social media? Do you think that's something that actually can be done, first of all, and how well do others do it?
Absolutely. And I think sometimes we think that social media is just about imparting information, about the latest offer or our latest event or whatever it may be. But I see a lot more brands who are really, really successful now at actually telling their story and including other people in the journey. And I'm thinking of one example where, they include the marketing team, they include the finance team, the production team, the customer service team, and they all do different elements of the social media. And they're a company that I think, flip, if I lived in that area, I would like to work for them. They look like they're a good organization. They're very inclusive. They're giving people opportunities to develop their skills and also represent their company. And it gives a bit more of a face to the company as well, especially when some companies can be a bit faceless, so to speak. Like some of those big brands where you just don't see the people behind it. And I think, telling the story of the company through the people who work in it can be a really, really effective thing. And also just help with your recruitment as well, because like I've just said, I look at that company and I think, flip, I'd love to work for them. There's bound to be other people who think the same thing, across numerous brands as well. You see how like you've had Gavin Wall on the show, and he highlights certain employees and stuff, and that may well encourage other people to think, flip, well, he notices the people that work for him. I'd like to be noticed too. I'd like to be valued and encouraged and developed in my own skills as well. So when people see that online, it really encourages them to think that's somewhere I want to be, or something that I want to be a part of, or even it's a company that I want to support by buying their products as well, because they value their people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things before we sort of started in the business, Ruth, like one of the things I would have probably thought of as being like just social media is just advertising. Like I would have been my sole sort of view on it, but now you kind of see it from a different perspective. As you just said, Gavin on speaking, he is that brand, and for us as Core Impact, we try to be that brand. Yourself, Ruthless Media, you try to be that brand too. So that personal interaction has a higher impact than I ever realized, I suppose, myself, until really starting into this area.
Yeah, and I guess, you guys, I'm sure have seen it as well as me. The more that you interact as a person, the more you benefit from it as well. We wouldn't have met if we hadn't actually had a personal interaction with each other and had a conversation and said, I'm starting in business, let's learn from each other and all of that. So those personal interactions really help to build the picture of what the brand and the company is behind it as well. And I think, you look at LinkedIn as well, there's a lot more can be gained from those personal profiles as opposed to the company profiles. Yes, those are really good for giving the message of what is happening within the company, but you need the people, you need the faces, because people buy from people, and relate better to people. So social media needs to think about that and not just be, like you've said, the advertising thing, which yes, it can be and it is, but it's having the message right to communicate, you know, the people behind it, and having the story, so people can actually relate to it and not just think it's, oh, it's another, you know, takeaway shop or another florist or whatever it is, you know, just showing off flowers, you know. It's about the people and the love and the time and the care and the value that they put into making what they do, and the value that they add to the people they sell the stuff to as well. So that culture needs to come across in the content that they share and they put out there.
Yeah, totally. I think the connections that people have within the organization are things that could act as, I suppose, recruiting tools for you as well. Like, I remember my cousin, he worked for a really well-known bar in Belfast, and at the time he's a manager now, but he was a general team member at the time. And I remember they asked him along with a few of the team members to take over their social media. I think the big thing at the time was Instagram, and when they were putting the type of content they were up on Instagram, he had a real knack for creating personality in what they were doing. So at that time, and keep in mind, we're talking a good lot of years ago now, the early days of Instagram, and I think most places were treating it as that, here's the products that we sell, here's a nice wee offer we're doing. And that works, as you say, to an extent. But what they started doing was they had like this in-house game that they played against each other, and I think it was like, if you catch somebody out doing something, I can't remember what it was, but it was really, really engaging. And likewise, they put it on their Facebook story at that stage. And what happened was they started getting, I think they had a real cult following of people saying, we want to see that game continued, you know. And so what it done was it created that engagement that was people to people, and you can see, yes, while I go to that bar, I mean, we have quite a diverse range of bars in Northern Ireland, I think, especially in Belfast, and you have a lot of choice. So when you want to have that competitive advantage, I think that in that scenario, and they were strictly looking for the pool of people from the student, because they were up in the student quarter. I think they were looking at it from that perspective and saying, this is the type of thing we know students are going to be interested in. And it worked, and they were able to fit. I think they ended up starting to do a weekly thing was linked to this. And so it goes to show that you can build an audience of people solely through that and bring them in-house, or whether it's a product or service, you can attract people to that. One that always stands out to me is Paddy Power. I always use them as an example.
Before you said it, I was thinking that.
And the only reason I actually mention it all the time is because, Sean, you brought it up that many times, and some of the stuff, it's a wee bit risque. Like, I think that they definitely know how to walk that line of what's politically correct and what's not, but I think that people appreciate it from the humorous perspective. And I think from that perspective, if you were somebody who wanted to put a bet on, because obviously it's legal, you are probably going to be more likely, if that resonates with you, to go with them than with somebody else, because they've added a real personality rather than this fights off, you know. So I think you're 100% right in what you say.
Yeah, I mean, you think of some of those TV shows, for example, where it's like behind the scenes at the hotel. Like, you go to a hotel, you don't necessarily want to know that, you know, JP's serving you, or that Sean has created the dinner in the kitchen. But you watch those shows and you do enjoy finding all that out. And it's the same on social media as well. They want to hear some of that behind the scenes story. And getting to know the characters and so on, because then when they do end up going into the hotel, they might talk to JP behind the bar, and they might, you know, ask, you know, could you send Sean a wee thank you for this dinner, it's lovely. You know, so they get to know the people, and then they relate a bit better to the business, and they become more repetitive customers, and you know, it's better for the company in the long run as well.
I remember, Ruth, a while back there, just even in terms of bowling, when you say about behind the scenes, was a Facebook post that I'd put up. Now I'm going back a while here, but it was an engineer at the back on top of one of the lanes, and we showed some images of the pin setters from behind, and it was one of the most popular social media posts because it was an area that people couldn't see. So they could sort of relate that that's what's behind that area. And I suppose, I don't know if that creates a better sort of personal connection for them as a customer coming in or not, you know.
I suppose people always wonder, you know, how does that all happen? What's the machinery look like? And, you know.
And
Or
even
even
have the
like,
engineer as the face there, you know, to show that that's the work that they do. And
Mm.
even like the engineer sort of is like that on top of the lane.
yeah,
Just portrays a sort of happy image of that culture, that working environment as well within there. I suppose people want to be part of an organization who looks after its people as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, I mean, you see so many ethical brands, that, you know, it's like a buy one, give one sort of scheme or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And people really buy into that because they see the ethics behind it. But I think that relates just as much to the culture within an organization or any company. You know, whenever a company's looking after the staff and looking after the team as a whole and looking after that culture, and that emanates through its social media, people want to follow that journey and be a part of that, and they support that much more than they would something else that doesn't quite represent that. Then, you know, they buy into those ethics a bit more and that ethos really.
That's a really good point that you make, and Sean, I know you're probably going to pick up on that, but one of the things that we as Core Impact try to do is promote the idea, instead of somebody thinking I need a job, you start creating the mindset where not only do I need a job, but I want to work with this organization because their values and core values resonate with my core values or my traits or behaviors. And I think that social media is such a good way in order for an organization, because I think there's so much cost associated with recruitment, as we'll all know. We'll have had the experience at one time or another, or you can imagine, for anyone who's watching, there is a lot of time and effort that goes into recruiting people. And if you don't recruit the right people and they're not a good fit for the organization, that they're not happy, you're not happy with the performance, a lot of time and energy put into those sorts of things. Whereas I think that I suppose social media can provide a window, as you say, into the background about this is what we do. Not only here's our core values slapped up on the walls, but here's some of the crack that we have. Like, one of our core values is fun. So every week we have a day where everybody plays pranks on each other, or, you know, those are the sorts of things that will resonate with people who are watching it and say, you know what, I've been watching that for a while. I wonder, are they taking any people on? And take an example of Odyssey again. I think whenever we were putting things out on social media like that, and then whenever we put up a post about, you know, where there's positions available in our team, and it's very few and far between because not many people leave, unfortunately, which but like, you know, I find that whenever, and Sean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I find anytime we do a recruitment drive on that site, or anytime we ever have, people always come with the attitude of, I would love to work here. They always come with the same attitude. It's never just I need a couple of hours to do me. It's always I've been in here, I've felt the environment, I've seen you on social media, maybe not that one just as many times, but they've felt the environment and they've seen that this is somewhere that's fun and it's a nice environment to work within, because that's where people go to relax, you know. And
yeah, but at the same time, that's harder for some of those companies who aren't that front facing with customers.
Yeah.
You know, so with Odyssey Bowl and so on, obviously you've got people coming through football who, you know, get that vibe and get that feel and so on. But if you're in a factory setting or a whole range of different office settings or whatever, you don't necessarily get people coming in to get a vibe for what it's like in the office, you know, and go, that's somewhere I want to work. Which is why the whole social media thing can be the place to do that then. Yeah. But then unfortunately you still see plenty of people who feel they need to be very professional in what they talk about online, and they don't share that personality or that sense of team in what they're saying online as well. So there's a lot of support and help can be done around that to help people communicate that, from yourselves, from myself, whatever.
Absolutely.
But there's a lot of stuff can be done to help people communicate that message a bit more effectively.
Yeah.
One of the things, sorry, I'm going to go slightly off because this has in my head. See, like the sort of Burger King and McDonald's style. Do you know where they kind of compete with each other in terms of social media? What impact do you think that has in terms of like the customers and their own team? Because the first impression I get is when they're kind of going head to head, that if you work for McDonald's or you work for Burger King, you're kind of like, you're in their corner cheering them on, and it creates a nice team atmosphere as well. Do you think that is something that maybe would have an impact on it, or would have an impact on the customers, or I'm Burger King or I'm McDonald's, like that kind of idea?
I used to work in McDonald's as a teenager for a couple of years, and I definitely felt that kind of, oh, us and them kind of thing.
Yeah.
And whenever someone would come through the drive-through asking for a Whopper, you're like, it's a Big Mac, you know. So you definitely felt that sense of, you know, corporate identity and being part of the team and everything too, you know.
Yeah.
But I mean, now I'm not an employee obviously at the minute, but I don't feel a sense of loyalty to one or the other disregarding the social media. For those sort of things, it tends to be convenience, but also knowing the sort of general ethics behind the company as well, you know. Are they responsible? Are they looking out for the environment? Are they, you know, looking after their team, paying them fairly and all that sort of stuff, you know. But as an employee back then, I definitely felt that us and them kind of, you know.
But it's amazing. That's a culture in itself, isn't it? I mean, whether it's nice competition or not, in some cases, I'd imagine in some industries, you know, I think it's interesting how a culture can be built up in-house, but in this case, from the social media perspective, how you can bring people part of those cultures. Because I've seen brands where, like, one that stands out to me, that it's almost like, you know, it's almost like a uniform, but I don't know if it's because a lot of the stuff's dark, but like Under Armour. So lots of people I know, like, it's almost like they wear it like a badge of pride, as in, like, one, I go to the gym, two, I stand by this, and, you know, and I know I know people who are so, like, I'll only, like, they'll only buy those brands, and I think that for new brands coming through, because it's okay to pick out the Under Armours and the Nikes and the McDonald's, and because they're institutions themselves, you know, they've been about, many people only have ever known them brands growing up, majority of us. But, you know, whenever you're an organization, for instance, like an accountancy practice or a solicitors, or, you know, very serious sort of, this is what we do, you know, in your experience, not asking you to name names, but do you find that those types of organizations find it harder to try and be a little bit more relaxed on social media?
Well, yeah, but I suppose because their careers are very focused on black and white information, you know, so it's hard to be that softer grey sometimes on social media, you know, and give a bit of that personality, and also be true to, you know, the ethics of your profession. But I do see plenty of people who are very successful at it, and numerous that we both know on LinkedIn as well, who are very good at, you know, portraying the professionalism, their personality, and the story, all in the same posts, you know. So it is possible, but I think some of that takes a bit of practice and a bit of thinking as well, and thinking. I'm not just talking to a computer here as well. I think that's part of the issue that a lot of people face when they're writing content. They think they're just talking to this faceless computer. They forget that there are people at the end of it. So it's really important to think about, what does the end user hear when they read this or see this video, or when they listen to this podcast, or whatever it is that you're making. What are they going to take away from this? What's the value that I'm adding to them? Because it's not for me, it's for them at the end of the day that I'm creating this content. So it's sometimes you just need to remove yourself from the equation and think about, you know, what's the end goal, and then go back in and put your personality back in there.
I know, like, just talking about that sort of profession, I know just from your recent post there, you put a class post on your TikTok.
Oh.
the two says date. And I know just from the interactions on that as well, that the challenges that people face. Now, I know for myself, TikTok just seems out there at the minute, but you're kind of going, this is an upcoming trend. Is this something you should be getting on now to be involved in that? But I know from your posts, you were chatting to the likes of Louise and things like that, people in HR and different sort of businesses that are maybe more professional than others in the nicest possible way. It is difficult to know where to go with that. Like, do you go to TikTok, or is that too much?
Yeah, well, TikTok, because there's been a huge influx of the sort of over 20s over this past few months, the old people.
Old in your 20.
I know. There's a lot more of an audience there to be working with too, and it's good to be an early adopter of that, if that's somewhere you think you want to relate to people and connect with people. Now, I always say, if you're going to be doing social media for your business, don't try and spread yourself too thin. Do a few platforms really well, and don't just do every platform for the sake of it. But if you think TikTok is something that you enjoy doing and you want to put the time into it, and your audience is there as well, then give it a go and see what happens. I do see some people from very serious professions on there. Like, one is a therapist, and she's talking about a lot of mental health stuff, which can be very useful for young people, obviously, and never mind the over 20s who are now on the platform. But then I also see people who are business consultants and business coaches on there, and they're not doing the TikTok dances and all this here, but they're playing some of the trend music, and they're putting messages on the screen through the words, the text boxes they can add, and they're getting a following. They're getting people who are interested in learning and developing their business or whatever it is through the content that they're putting out.
Yeah.
And I think TikTok in particular lends itself to being a bit more sort of fun or relaxed in terms
Yeah.
of content,
Yeah.
but can also be quite, serious and engaging at the same time. So it's just a matter of trying to see, does that fit with you as a person? Is it something that you want to pursue and have the time to do?
Yeah.
And then build that in. Because there is an audience there, I think, for
Like
any
it's
industry within
probably more
TikTok.
like I'll send JP on Ruth than myself, to be honest with you. He'd have to do our TikTok. That's more his
Laura
thing, I
had
think, than
me.
mine.
Yeah, we very early in the lockdown, we had a weekly sort of quiz with Laura's side of the family that we done. And when it rolled around to our time, Laura was all over the TikTok, and so she actually did get me to do one, and it came out actually quite well. But it was like a friend.
It's the first I've heard this, by the way.
Yeah, no. There you go. It's an exclusive just for you. But yeah, and it came down. It went down really well because it was kind of like a video round, like name the sitcom type thing, and it was friends in that scenario, and so
Yes.
I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting whenever you look. You mentioned there, obviously, if there's a place for everybody. There obviously is. There's a place for everybody everywhere, but I suppose some organizations can sort of have a stiff upper lip and go, oh no, why would we go on that? There's only teenagers on that and whatever. But a lot of people would have said the same thing in reverse in terms of LinkedIn, for instance. Like, why would you ever go on LinkedIn if you're not a business owner or a senior executive?
It's all very stuffy and professional. Yeah.
Yes, and I think particularly in the last 2 years, there's been an influx of people with much more of a social kind of attitude towards things, and I've seen many debates. I'm sure you've both seen many debates on LinkedIn where you do get people who are a bit hardliner, for lack of a better way of describing it, saying, "Oh, why is this information on here? It shouldn't be on here. It's too personal."
But Facebook.
That's a perfect example, right?
I mean, anybody on LinkedIn will have seen Aaron Watson and the stuff that he's done.
Who? Sorry? No, I'm joking.
Aaron. And obviously he's done things a bit different, but we love watching it. Like,
it's working.
He is, we know what he does. It works so well. I know he got a lot of stick for that, obviously at different points. So now, but you know what? Who can argue? It's been effective.
I suppose for now it's a nice change from, because of course you get when I think about LinkedIn, I think about good quality content, really good articles that can link to information that's relevant to your industry. But then when you come across your newsfeed and you see something that Aaron's doing, or likewise Ruth yourself, because that TikTok video literally has done amazing. Some of the videos you put out, most of the videos you put out, sorry, in that aspect, like literally capture you, because there's usually color, there's music, and you and people like Aaron are a testament to, do you know what, there is a place for this sort of stuff. We are all people, and you made it really, you touched upon that point earlier on, and you're 100% right. People buy from people, and not everybody wants to hook through LinkedIn to be looking for articles or to add the next contact or whatever, or look for jobs. Sometimes you just want to have a bit of a laugh and say, do you know what, that perked me up a little bit. And I think when you put videos out like that, for anybody watching, I suppose, who might say, yeah, it's a nice idea to have social media, but how would we do that? Well, people like you can help. Take away the stress altogether and clearly create massive engagement, so I think it's really important for anyone watching in that case, especially when it comes to not just building a culture, but also putting themselves out there and trying to create that added advantage, competitive advantage, should I say. It's important to start speaking to people like you, because it is the future.
Yeah, but I think the other thing to think about as well with any social media interaction is to be authentically you, mirror the person that you really are. Because particularly on things like LinkedIn or wherever you're trying to sell, if they have this vision of, this version of Ruth, but they need this version of Ruth, they're not going to buy from you, so because like, oh, she's a bit of a fraud then, so you want to be genuinely you, and genuinely portraying, the culture of the company and what you're all about, because people buy that authenticity as well, and they appreciate that authenticity.
Absolutely.
And it's also really good when it comes to meeting someone in real life then, because you've already done a bit of that legwork and breaking the ice and getting to know each other.
Yeah.
You know, you have a better understanding of each other before you've even met in person. And it means, you know
what you're in for.
Yeah, there's that too, yeah.
I think that's a big plus out of doing video as well, because like video is something that I really genuinely struggle with at the start. It's still not probably really comfortable with it in all honesty, but I think it's really important because it lets people actually see who you are and how you speak, even just things like that they can kind of feel like they do know you personally. Like, about that's stupid, like, but it was the Chase the other night, the program, and Bradley Walsh was on talking with the guy's a doctor of some kind, but they were joking about, and they're both on TV, and they were saying, you know, as public profiles, people talk to you as if they know you because they see the interaction, and I think it works the same at any level. Like, at our level, just for people to sort of see who we are. They might not like us, but hopefully they will.
Yeah.
You want to put that across, and you want to have that sort of personal touch with people, as I've said before. And I think videos can they achieve that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Much more effective than photos alone.
Yeah.
So photos are still very good. And there's still a lot of people who don't share photos, particularly of themselves. And that's a whole barrier to get across. But the video is just so much more. It's another level just to really help enhance those relationships and connections.
Yeah, I'd rather share my personality than my looks, in all honesty. Like,
yeah, you need to. Ruth, look, I know that we could literally talk, and we have in many occasions talked for much longer than this, but I know you're quite busy today, and we're very fortunate to have you for the time we have. I think it's important that we maybe book you in again and explore some other themes if you'd be up for it. But look, with that being said,
I'm under pressure now, but yeah, sure, no bother.
We'll chat to you, don't worry. But for anyone watching, because it's important that they know more about how they can do this and be assisted in this sort of thing. If anyone wanted to learn how they could learn more about how you could help them, where could they find you?
LinkedIn, Ruth Young. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok as Ruthless Media NI.
Love it.
And that's it. That's the easiest. No, if you want to send an email, it's ruth@ruthlessmediaservices.com.
Fantastic. Delighted. Well, listen, before Sean does his wee outro, I want to thank you very, very much, and I really hope that you'll be,
yes, Ruth, thank you. Appreciate your
you'll
time.
be on with us again soon.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Yes, absolutely, as always.
Thanks very much, guys. So remember, just to finish off, engage, enable, and empower.